in the wrong way, etc., etc. So now we're going to do, there's these four things, the lulav, the hadas, arava, and esrig. If they're dry or stolen, and even if you stole them and the guy gave up finding them, or they were stolen, you bought it from someone who stole it from them, or they come from a tree that was supposed to be destroyed because someone served it as idolatry. So or it came from a city that was supposed to be destroyed because of idolatry. You shouldn't take it. But if you did use it, then it's not kosher. If one of them was from idolatry, so one of the four species, so then you shouldn't take it. But if you did, you already fulfilled the mitzvah. If it's spoiled, if you leave, fruit gets spoiled, stuff like that. But it's not fully dry. Well, if it's old, it's not fully dried out, it's kosher. And if you have a lulav which is dried out, if you don't have any other choice, then you can use that lulav. However, the other things that are fully dried out, they're pointless. There's no point in using them. An esrog of arla. So arla means if you grow a fruit tree, you're not allowed to take fruit for 3 years, right? You're not allowed to take fruit for 3 years from fruit trees. So esrog of arla or truma. Let's say it's esrog which you needed to donate, or you have your esrog and you have to donate a certain amount of them to the kohanim. So that's the first thing you do in your produce. So you didn't donate to the kohen. So you're not allowed to use the produce until you donate some of it to the kohen. So you cannot use that lulav. It's not kosher. It's esrog. It's not kosher esrog. If you're not sure if there was donated or not, for example, let's say you bought it from somebody and they're not the smartest person. You're not sure if they gave the tax or not. You're not sure they know about it. So then it's kosher. Because if it's food that you're not sure if it's taxed or has been taxed or not, if you're poor, then you're allowed to eat it. If you're not poor, you're not allowed to eat it. So what you could do is you could say nothing belongs to me anymore, and I'm poor now, and then you could technically say that. An esrog, let's say you have esrog of truma or meiser sheni, which meiser sheni is a tax. Every couple of years you have to bring a tenth of your produce to Israel, to Jerusalem, to eat it. So if you shouldn't use it because it can maybe become impure. But if you use it, it's kosher. An esrog that the top was split, cut off. A lulav, which the top was cut off. Or if you look at the lulav, there's actually what's called the shedra, which is a spine. The spine are two leaves which go all the way up to the lulav. If those are split in half, then it's not kosher. If it's crooked in the front, then it is not kosher. If it's crooked in the back, it's kosher because that's the way it works. So if it's crooked in a way that it's artificially broken that way, the lulav, then it's not kosher. But if it's a way that it can grow, then it's kosher. If it's twisted on one of the sides of it, it's kosher. It's not kosher. It's not kosher. If it is split. Okay, so now the way it works with a lulav is a palm branch is it starts off as a frond and then it opens up, right? So now, generally speaking, when you're picking a lulav, so as long as the middle leaves are together, two leaves, even if it's split like that, it's still kosher. Okay, if you have, now, this is the way a lulav grows. When they grow, there's two leaves in the middle, and then there's two parallel leaves for each level. So when you're looking at the lulav, it's slanted. In the middle, it's two leaves together, and then you have two coinciding leaves on each side. They grow together.
Almost the stems that hold the leaves.
Yes, well, the stems, these stems, which are the leaves, they grow, on the lulav, it's all leaves. So they grow, each leaf has a partner, so to speak. They grow in sets of two. Okay. And in the middle one is called the tiyoimis. That's called like the middle leaf. The tiyoim, if it's split, it's not kosher. If there's no tiyoimis, so then it's not kosher at all. If now let's say you have a certain lulav, so usually the leaves cover each other. You might have a lulav where you have the middle tiyoimis, and then you have leaves on the side which didn't grow out. So like they're not as long as it covers the lulav, it's kosher. These are pretty rare. Like if you buy a lulav and esrog, they won't send you one like that. They won't send you a lulav. That's kind of unusual. But if they don't reach, so if the leaves do not cover the whole middle stem, So in other words, the outside leaves do not grow tall enough to touch the bottom of the higher leaf, then it's not kosher. The leaves on the outside have to cover the inner leaf. Okay, now you have hadas, myrtle. We'll do this a little bit more. A myrtle, if the top is cut off, it's not kosher. If most of it fell off, if there's 3 leaves on one, so we said earlier, the description in the Torah, it says anaf eitz avis. It says you need leaves which are like a chain.
I'm sorry, what is a myrtle?
Myrtle is the hadas. It's one of the branches we use in lulav.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the way it works is we said yesterday, it has 3 leaves grow at a time. So there's always on one line 3 leaves. And we said yesterday, if there's 2 and 1, which is higher, it's not kosher. Now, so is long. Now let's say they all fall off. So as long as you have 3 leaves which are together on one line, then it's still considered a hadas. It's still kosher. Okay, now, if let's say you have, sometimes they grow berries. They grow berries. They have little buds. So if they are a lot, if they're green, it's kosher. If they're red or black, it's not kosher. I did. If they're black, it's not kosher. If you have black buds, or they call them grapes here, but berries, and you take them off, then it's kosher. But you cannot take them off on the holidays. So let's say you come into the holiday and you open up your hadassim and there's black or red, and there's a lot of black or red berries on it, you're not allowed to pull them off, and it's not kosher. If you did it, then if you did it by accident, you didn't know, then it's kosher. A rava, the rabbis don't say we punish you and you're not allowed to use it, even though you did it on the holiday and you weren't supposed to. A willow that you cut off the top, so willow branch you cut off the top, that is kosher. If it's kosher. Yeah.
The next sentence.
Yeah. If it's
Broke off.
if they broke off, they're not kosher. An esrog, which you have a hole that penetrates the skin, even a little bit, it is not kosher. If it doesn't, if it's like an isar is like a size of a dime or so, then it's not kosher. Okay, if it's missing from, so that's a hole, you poked a hole through, right? If it's missing from it, then it's not kosher. If you take the dadoi, so the dada is known as the pitum, but really it's a little different. So you have on top of esrog this little thing, and there's 2 parts to it. There is like a flower on top, if you look closely, and there's a stem that goes into it, and that's called a pitum. That's one of the unusual things of esrog. It has little things sticking out on top. You ever realized it before? So it's one of the unusual things. You had one on your esrog, David. You probably saw it. Now, so this is a big thing. If you break it off, so now the Rambam says, if you break off the whole thing, then it's not kosher. However, if you actually break it off, just the top of it, and there's still from the stem, it will be kosher. So that's an important thing. A lot of people drop their esrog and the pitum breaks off, and sometimes it's kosher, sometimes it's not when it breaks off. If you break off the wood from it, which makes it to the bottom, and there's a hole, it's not kosher. So this is another thing a lot of people don't know. When they harvest esrog, they don't pull it off the tree, they cut the stem, and there's a little bit of stem on it. If the stem is not there, it's not kosher anymore. If the stem falls off. If you have a chazazis, chazazis is, what is that? How does it translate that? So where it has like literally tons of pictures of different types of esrogim. You know, this thing's not kosher, this thing is kosher. So what is a chazazis? Basically, usually it's a scratch. So usually a leaf grows into the esrog or is growing next to the stem, and it makes a scratch on it. If it's in 2 or 3 places, it's not kosher. If it's one place, if it covers most of it, then it's not kosher. But otherwise it's kosher. And if it goes on the top, even a little bit, right by the top, it's not kosher. If you take out the outside of it and that it's not missing and it's green the way it is when it's grown, if you take off all of it, it's kosher. And if there's a little bit left of the skin, the outside skin, then it's kosher. Esrog, which is like an apple, or it is spoiled, soaked, cooked, black, white, has spots on it, or it is very, very green, or it's grown in a mold. So, you know, like if you ever look in Japan, they have like square watermelons and stuff like that, and they're always growing cucumbers and molds. Yeah. The fruit and vegetable business is very big in Japan, where it's like, look it up online, it'll be $40 for a square watermelon, you know, and people are very into perfecting the fruit there. Yeah, look at it.
Does that affect its taste or something?
Yes, actually they have all sorts of, especially like in Asia, they have way better fruit than here because They have all these methods. Like, yeah, check it out online. It's very interesting. Like, it's known. Like, if you go visit someone, you get a gift. If you get them four $15 apples, that's like a really good gift. They're really high quality fruit. So let's say one of the things they do is they put it in a mold. So let's say you have a mold and you make the esrog and it looks different than esrog. Then it's not kosher. But if you put in a mold that keeps the shape of a nice esrog, so then it's kosher. This is different types of shapes. I'm not even sure. 1 second. Does the time? 1 second. Okay.
Twin, double, unripe.
Okay. So twin esrogs is another one which is very, very rare. And actually, just saw a picture of one in Israel this year. A twin esrog. I mean, two esrogim, they grow into each other, and so that's not kosher. Unripe's not kosher. The place where it's growing, it has like black, it's not kosher. And if it's very black, it's not kosher. No matter what, if there's something which is very black on the esrog, it's not kosher. All these things that we say they're kosher, or because it's stolen, this is only the first day. But on the second day of the holiday, everything's kosher. And the things of idolatry, or because the esrog is forbidden to eat, that's never kosher. A person cannot use esrog on the first day of the holiday. Okay, now this is another important law. You cannot use your friend's lulav on the first day of the holiday unless you borrow from him and he says he will give it to you as a gift and you'll return it.
Okay, according to the English here, it says that you can't use it on the first day if it's been stolen, but you can use it on the second
Yeah,
day.
correct.
Why is that?
So the reason is because the Torah says, "V'lakachtem lachem." You have to take it for yourself. You have to have your own lulav and esrog. The mitzvah in the Torah is everyone has their own. That's the best way to do the mitzvah. I want to tell you, the Mishnah says you have to buy children esrogim because you cannot halachically give something to a child that belongs to him on the holiday, and he cannot halachically give it to you. So that's why, so now, the rule is you have to own it. So that's what it says here. It says that, let's say I want to let Ed use my lulav and esrog on the first day. I'm supposed to specify, I'm giving it to you. It belongs to you until you return it to me. In other words, it really belongs to you. Now,
And then the idea is I will give it back to you as soon as I'm done with it.
yes, and you'll give it back to me. So it's still better to own your own because therefore you don't have to go on to that.
Yeah.
Now, if it's stolen, you can't say it really belongs to you.
So then how can you use it on the second day?
Because on the second day, it doesn't have to belong to you. You can shake someone else's lulav and esrog.
But it says right here that if it's stolen, you can still use it
On the second day, because the second day doesn't halachically, like I can use your lulav and esrog on the second day.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if I steal it from you, I can't use it on the first day, but I still have it.
Yeah.
I can use it on the second day.
Correct.
I'm not talking about a different one or getting.
Correct.
So
Correct.
how does it become mine on the second day?
It doesn't have to belong to you. You can use someone else's. So let me put it another way. Let's say someone in Israel stole it and they came to America and they sold it to you, right? They sold it to you. So now you bought it. You don't know anything about it, right? And you find out on the first day that it was the guy says, "Oh, I stole it," right? You can't return it or anything like that. The first day you can use it. You can't use it because it doesn't belong to you because it was taken in a way that it still belongs to the original person.
But I think he's questioning if you steal it, how can it be a mitzvah for you to use it?
You have different rules for the first day and the second day.
Yeah. we
Correct.
understand that.
So
It's totally
That's
the
why-
answer
Why is that?
so the answer is it still can be a mitzvah if it's stolen.
Even if I stole.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like this. It's like, let's say you steal food and you have sustenance from the food. And I say, how can you have sustenance? It belongs to somebody else. How can you enjoy that meal if it belongs to somebody else? The answer is when you do a mitzvah, you're doing a spiritual thing. You're doing a real thing. So when you do the mitzvah on the second day, it doesn't have to belong to you. You did a real mitzvah. You can't say, I can't say you didn't do the mitzvah. It's like saying, delete that you ate that. You didn't get sustenance from that. You didn't, let's say you steal money and you put it in a slot machine and you win a lot of money with it, right? And I say it was stolen, you didn't win it. No, you won it, you have all this money, right? So it's important to remember that in Jewish thought and halacha, it's wrong to steal, but it's even more real than spiritual actions are even more real than physical actions.
So it's okay to use a stolen
Well, if you
On the second day.
if you use the stolen one,
Because it's still stolen.
well, so if you use the stolen one, you fulfill the mitzvah, right?
Right.
And you should probably pay the person back and make sure after, because you have fulfilled the mitzvah.
But it doesn't.
Could you say it this way?
Well, because we're not talking about that. We're talking about did you fulfill the mitzvah or not?
Right.
And the answer is you fulfilled the mitzvah. Did you win money or not? If it's stolen, I can't say you didn't win money with the stolen money. You did, right? So I can't say you didn't do the mitzvah. So do you have to shake a lulav again? That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking, there's laws of stealing or somewhere else. Right now we're talking about if it's stolen, did you fulfill the mitzvah or not?
Could you say the Torah says on the first day you have to own it to fulfill the mitzvah, on the second day you don't have to own it to fulfill the
Correct,
mitzvah?
that's.
So, by saying you don't have to own it, then all of these other ways of getting it are included, even if they're wrong.
Well, so
So
there's,
it's really simple.
Yeah, it doesn't say that in here, so that's why I was.
all right, well, so,
confused. I didn't-
yeah, so, you
Now I
may,
get it.
you may have done his sin, right? But you do have, you do do the mitzvah, if it's stolen, on the second day. On the first day, you have to have your own, it has to belong to you. And if
And
it's
the guy
stolen,
you stole it from is gonna smack you.
But you're drawing a distinct line between spiritual acts and physical acts.
You know,
And the
I should have cut you off
physical
this
act,
morning.
doing
You deserve it.
committing a sin or violating a commandment in a physical act doesn't affect the mitzvah of the spirituality of the spiritual
no,
act.
what I was saying is just like it doesn't affect the physical act,
Yeah, they're separate.
it doesn't affect this physical act, right? If you steal something and then you buy a car, I can't say you didn't buy the car because it's stolen, right? So even though someone went against the mitzvah of stealing,
But it doesn't corrupt the spiritual act.
so as far as fulfilling the commandment, you did the mitzvah. You did the mitzvah.
Okay.
Just like the physical thing, it corrupts it. It's a stolen car, but you own a car, right? And like now, let's say if I steal money from you and I put it in a slot machine, I make a lot of money. Do I need to return all the money that I made, or just the money that I stole? What do you
Well,
think?
that's a whole other thing.
Well, what do you think? What is American law? American law is you only have to return the money that you stole.
It's the fruit of the poison tree, so
So it's wrong to steal, but you fulfilled the mitzvah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it also goes on and says that those which are disqualified because of the association with idol worship or because the etrog is forbidden to be eaten are unacceptable both on the first day and on
Correct,
the later
correct,
days.
correct.
And then the later days part is what confuses.
So
You are able to eat it after the holiday is over.
all right. So the way it works is like this. The way it works is when you steal something, you have a mitzvah to return it, right? So you're, in other words, when someone serves something with idolatry, the thing becomes asur bahana. It becomes you cannot get any benefit. If you will shake a esrog, which was used for idolatry, on Sukkot, the rabbis will say, "What esrog? There's no esrog. It was used for idolatry. It's meant to be destroyed. It was used for idolatry. A stolen object, because it can be returned, Therefore, it doesn't have the status of something which has to be destroyed,
Yeah.
and therefore you used an esrog. So what should you do? You should pay the guy back. Now, when it comes to a stolen esrog, there's a difference between the first day where it has to belong to you and it doesn't, and the second is where it doesn't have to belong to you. When it comes to idolatry, you have to have an esrog. If someone used the esrog for idolatry, it's not considered an esrog. In fact, if someone serves a car as an idol, it's not considered a car. You're not allowed to touch it. You're not allowed to sell it. So,
Okay, my question is about eating it though. because
so you're
it
not allowed
says-
to eat something if it's idolatry.
Well, okay, but it says that it's unacceptable on both the first day and on the later days for you to eat it. Are they saying later days of the holiday?
Both.
Because after the holiday's over, you are allowed to eat.
Well, if it's idolatry, you're never allowed to eat it.
Okay.
If it's
It's
idolatry,
corrupted.
so idolatry is interesting. We actually said, idolatry is a very interesting subject. We actually spoke about the same thing. We said the same thing with shofar. The shofar is stolen, you're allowed to use it. And idolatry. When something is used as an idol, the Torah considers that it doesn't exist anymore.
At the beginning, you mentioned if a tree is used for idolatry,
Yes.
the tree must be destroyed.
Yes.
Now, let's say you own an apple grove,
Yeah.
and you've known
We're
him
gonna close
for 10
around
years, and one day you find some guy praying to a tree.
You cannot make an idol something unless you own it. Like I can't,
okay,
I
so-
can't make your thing into an idol. Only you can. Or if a Gentile has a tree.
If some guy came in here and started praying to some god in front of your ark, you wouldn't have to destroy the ark because he didn't own it.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I just.
Yeah, no problem. So idolatry is an interesting thing. The closest place that we have idolatry nowadays is the laws of kosher wine. Wine libations are more strict. If a Gentile pours a glass of wine, we're not allowed to drink it anymore. We're not allowed to drink from that bottle anymore.
Wow.
Now, there's a rule that if it's mivushal, if the wine is pasteurized, if it's boiled, then you're allowed to. So, and that's a very strict law that we keep till today. And kosher wineries are very, very strict about who gets to see their wine and work with their wine. That's the only thing we do today. But even that, we don't actually consider idolatry. Nowadays, we don't really have so much idolatry. But if somebody, if you buy a product from Far East and there's idolatry on it, you're not allowed. You have to destroy it. You're not allowed to even sell it again. You know.
But wine is, it's not just idolatry. It's if a non-Jew,
Well, so wine, we're worried because throughout most of history of the world, Gentiles would make wine libations to idolatry. So the rabbis made a general rule, taking most of world history into account, that you cannot drink wine that's poured by a Gentile, lest he will make a libation prayer, which will cause it to become idolatry.
What does libation mean?
It means pouring wine for idols.
Like we pour wine and say l'chaim.
No,
They pour wine.
well,
and say-
literally everything in between, from actually pouring in front of an idol or saying a prayer while they're pouring it to idolatry.
it's just wine used in a ritual.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so let's go. Now we're holding on page
Section 10.
6. We're learning the Sikh of page 6, and we started. Just give me a second. Okay, yeah.
Sorry. I'm not.
I'll start from number
Wake
3.
up, dude.
We'll start from number 3. Okay. So we were talking about how if Rashi begins the Torah, and how relevant is it today? If Rashi begins the Torah with Rabbi Yitzchak, that Rabbi Yitzchak says that the reason why the Torah begins with Bereshis is because Jewish people have to be vocal that Israel belongs to the Jewish people, and they shouldn't at all. So what we mentioned is we said not only they have to be vocal, but Jewish people should not. The Yiddish word is rechen zich. Rechen means they shouldn't account with any logic when it comes to Israel. This is what Rashi's saying. They shouldn't say,
Oh, Rechner.
even you agree that
It's a
Israel should
German
belong
word.
to us. Yeah, it's the same German
Yiddish
Yiddish.
word.
They shouldn't even take into account, they should never say to Gentiles, even you agree, So I want to just say that, this week, America always says we stand with Israel, which is really great, but it should be 0%, according to the Rebbe, it should be 0% relevant to Israel's security policy. 0%. In other words, they shouldn't say, even the Gentiles agree that they should never say that. And I want to say that my whole life, Israel has been in war pretty much every year. And it's all because Israel never stood up and said, the land belongs to us, period. We don't care what anyone says. We see, actually, the Rebbe spoke about it. We see how many innocent lives, on both sides, in different nations, innocent lives are taken because there's no choice now. And Israel has dug themselves into a hole where they have to now backtrack.
That's right,
So
that's right.
this is actually something which you can pretty much see the Rebbe pretty much spoke about every single year, because there's been a war every single year, some such sort of war every single year for years and years and years, and the Rebbe pretty much spoke about it every year. He spoke about it with all the politicians and everybody. So this is interesting. This Rashi is actually something that the Rebbe probably spoke about several dozen times. This Rashi about Israel's policy.
Yeah, it was great that you mentioned this Rashi
Yes,
at
correct.
at the prayer meeting, because in these circumstances, this Rashi is very, very important. Whereas ordinarily you would think it is kind of to make this point sort of in unrelated to anything else isn't as strong.
Correct.
But now, where we're threatened, at the very beginning of the Torah,
Yes, correct. Okay, so yeah, this is definitely a value. And then what we extended it, we said this obviously has a big lesson. And the lesson for us is when it comes to Judaism, our original connection to Judaism should not be based on intellect. In other words, the fact that we perform Jewish things, we should know right away, this is what we do, period. In other words, we don't have to calculate, with the world and with the opposition, which is both outside of us and in ourselves. When people say, why do you do this? The real answer is because I'm Jewish. Why do you do Jewish things? So the moment that you go and you say, because it makes sense, it's rational, or whatever it is, it's a dangerous path. And it's always been a dangerous path for Jewish people.
yeah,
I
sorry.
think that we also have to realize that intellect, whether your reasoning is sound, it makes no difference to other people because they don't give a damn. You can say what Rashi said to the Arabs, and it will bounce right off them. Reason, if they believe a certain way, reason will not work, so don't even bother with it in some circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other side makes it a religious argument, and then but we have to make a intellectual argument. Whereas why is our religious argument less meaningful than their religious
Well, you're
argument?
saying that the Islam says that once Arabs lived in a certain land, it's always Islamic? Are saying that?
You know
Is
what they
that it?
called this latest invasion? The El Aqsa flood. Do you know what El Aqsa is?
No.
It's a mosque in Jerusalem,
Oh, okay, right.
on the Temple Mount.
Right.
So why does their religion take precedence
Right.
over
No,
our
yeah,
religion?
I
Well,
agree.
so
We have to meet it on the same terms.
so the origin.
And guess what? We were here first.
That's right.
Well, so the origin of this, as the Rebbe is going to say in the Sikha, is in general you have to view your Judaism that way as well. There are a lot of people who they're looking for reasons for things in Judaism, and based on the reasoning, that's what they do. And whatever has reason, they do. Whatever doesn't have reason, they don't do.
Yeah.
And what the Rebbe is saying is, when it comes to our personal lives, we have to know that our Judaism transcends reason.
And not only that, but morality transcends
Exactly,
reason.
same thing.
It is the same thing.
Yeah,
Well, they make this argument that we're colonials.
Yeah.
correct.
Well,
Now,
that's fact.
excuse me, we- who came first, Moses or Muhammad?
All right.
Sorry.
All right, so-
I'm not buying it.
So we continued on, and we said to understand this more, we're going to ask some questions. One thing we said,
I'm ready.
one thing that we said Rashi quotes the Psalms, which says, Koyach Maisav Higid La'amri. There's two things. There's God's action, and there's the power behind his actions. And we said that King David's saying, Bereshis Bar Lakim is God communicating the power behind his actions, the strength behind his works. Right? So we asked, what is it referring to, like the strength behind his works? The strength is obviously what we can say, but why is it calling it the strength? How is it the strength?
And the creation.
The strength, by stating the creation, in the Torah, God is giving us strength behind his actions.
Okay, yeah. That's
So,
the
okay.
question.
So now, we said we're going to understand this. V'yuvan behekten bir inyan Eretz Yisrael beruchnis. Now, what's so beautiful about this talk here is the Rebbe really believed that the best way to help Israel is by doing Torah mitzvahs. That's the best way of helping Israel, doing Torah mitzvahs and studying Torah and committing more to Torah mitzvahs. So why is that? So let's get into that. Now I want to note, there's been a huge awakening. I was telling before, there's a guy who said he'll pay for up to 1,200 pairs of tefillin for free for people who will put on tefillin every day. They've already got more than 1,200 people to commit to putting tefillin on every day. The Rebbe spoke about Shabbos candles, lighting Shabbos candles, especially for women to have a special connection to Israel, and the Rebbe had no doubt of this. So in order to understand Rashi, what Rashi is saying here, truly get to depth, we have to first go into what Israel is spiritually. Israel is spiritually. As it says in the Torah, why are we looking to what Israel is spiritually? What is the quality of Israel? What is the main quality of Israel? So the Torah says, Eretz Asher Eine Hashem Elokecha Ba Mirish Hashanah V'Achas Hashanah. It's the special land which God is watching. That's what Israel is. When the Torah is describing Israel in Psalms, Rashi says it's the land which God keeps his eye on. Right? So what does that mean? Hainu. God keeps his eye on everything. But where can we see God's eye on it the most? And here he uses the word, his providence the most. In Israel, the providence of God is most revealed. In Israel, you can sense God's presence more than other places.
And God said to Abraham that your people shall be a blessing to all the world. So Israel is supposed to hopefully be an example of how to run a country.
Correct. Yeah, so in origin, Israel has God's providence. What happens in Israel is, so to speak, God is paying more attention to Israel. Now, it's interesting, in the Talmud it says, people in Israel have to rely on God. Why? Because Israel relies on rain. They need rain for their produce. And every year when there's no rain, it's terrible in Israel if there's no rain. In America, you don't need rain for business. So in America, you could work and forget about God, because everything grows. But in Israel, they always know, every year, boy, we better pray for rain, because if it's going to be like 2 years ago when we didn't have rain, it's not going to be good.
It's a little bit like this area.
A little bit like this, correct. So, okay, since the eyes of God are on it, since the eyes of God, your Lord, survey it inherently, but for the fact that man has free choice to act contrary to God's will, evil and opposite of holiness have no place in Israel, for God is of pure eyes, incapable of seeing evil. So, so now the Rebbe was very much of the opinion, when everyone would say, what are we going to do about Israel? He'd say, Israel is safe. Israel, you have to be calm that Israel is the safest place. And now the Rebbe was of the opinion because in Torah it is the safest place. And the reason why we don't always see it as the safest place is because we're actors. Jewish people are actors of Torah. We bring light to the world. So when Jewish people say, Israel is the safest place to themselves, and they say, stop thinking it's not safe, it's safe, actually that undercovers the reality that God is watching Israel. So it's not only that God is watching Israel, but we are partners with God in spreading God in the world. So when we teach ourselves to be calm about Israel, that actually brings security to Israel. This is something which the Rebbe spoke about many times. So when people, our faith is not just for us to connect to God. We're active players in spreading God in the world. So, okay.
I like the next part too.
So move on mizeh. Shebechinas Yisrael beruchnis, ba'avodas Adon l'koyin hi moira v'mezes l'shtemus avayda b'kiyum eter mitzvos. Amshachas gil l'kus shtil tzara. What? Okay, one second. What do you want to treat? Okay.
Page you on there?
Page 7. So it's understood that what is Israel of each person. Now this is another thing which the Rebbe was quite common. If you don't want Israel to give away your land, where does it start with? Well, I doubt anybody is going to get their voice to the politicians in Israel, in Prescott, even in Israel. It starts with not giving away your Israel. Everyone has Israel inside of them. Your Israel is your body, your soul. And when you give it away to other things besides Judaism, then, okay.
We're B'nai Yisrael. We're
Correct.
Israelites.
So,
our peoplehood is in the name of the land of Israel.
well, Israel, if you want to look at it on the other way, the name Israel only came about because our peoplehood, right?
Yeah.
It came about because Jacob is named Israel.
B'nai Yisrael.
Huh?
Yis-
Okay. What do you need? A becher? Okay. What else do you need?
But I like this next section, which says, similarly, in the middle of that paragraph, the paragraph that on 7, the spiritual counterpart,
Yes.
and then in the middle of that
Uh-huh.
paragraph, the word similarly, do you see that?
Yes.
Similarly, the name Yisrael reflects a connection to the Torah and its mitzvahs, for it's well known that Yisrael is an acronym formed by the initial letters of the words Yeshishim. I don't know the rest of it, but that Hebrew phrase is the Torah contains 600,000 letters, and through the various combination of the letters, all the mitzvahs are explained. So Israel is synonymous with Torah, is what he's saying. Because Israel is the letters of Yisrael are an acronym for there are 600,000 letters in the Torah.
With that phrase, yes.
So he's basically saying that Israel, is synonymous with the Torah.
Because of the mitzvah. Because of the mitzvah.
Because of
letters.
that phrase, there are 600,000 letters in the Torah.
All right. So
What
let's,
does that phrase
let's go
mean?
further. Let's go further. We'll get there. Okay. All right. Amr Razal. So what is Israel? Israel is essentially the Jewish people. It's actually not the land, right? It's first the Jewish people, then the land.
Because we're descended from Jacob.
Israel. Yeah, Jacob is Israel,
Right,
right?
right, I
Okay,
get
so
that.
what is Israel? Israel means the service of Torah mitzvahs, the holy part of you. That's Torah mitzvahs. Amrumuz gam b'Hashem Eretz Yisrael. Amrazal l'merikishma Eretz sheratz talasis ratzayin kaina. The rabbis tell us in the Midrash, why is it that Israel is called Eretz Yisrael? Eretz Yisrael is Eretz. It comes from the word ratzon, which means will. Eretz Yisrael, why is it called Eretz Yisrael? It's the land that wants to do God's will. That's what Israel represents. Israel represents doing Torah mitzvahs.
The root of Eretz is will.
Eretz and Ratzon, they both have the same root, which means run, to be driven to something, and they both mean will, to be driven to something. So Eretz, it's the land that wants to do God's will. It's a land that wants
The land of God's will.
it desired to do the will of the Creator. Yeah, that's what it is.
Ratzah. You see that there? It says because Ratzah.
Eretz Sheratzasa. It's the land. So Eretz has the same root as Rotzeh, right?
Right.
But
Which has the same root as both of them. Their common root word is Ratz. Ratz means to run, to go to something that you want, to be driven to something. Okay. Agam Yisrael Maral in Torah Mitzvahs Kedush Yisrael Rosh Tevis Yashishim Riboy Sister. Also Yisrael refers to the Jewish people's connection with the Torah.
This is what he-
So, because Yisrael is the acronym of Yesh, Shishim, Riboy, Isis, Later, which stands for there are 600,000 letters in the Torah. Shabav, Alidei Tzrufi, Isis, Elu, Nisbaru, Kol Mitzvahs. So, through the letters of the Torah, that's how they're all the mitzvahs represented. So, to sum this up, Israel is the land of Jewish people serving God. And Jewish people are servers of God, do Torah mitzvahs. So Israel and ourselves represents our service of God, and the land, it's the land of the service of God. That's what Israel is. Amnam, Kamoshu Bapash Sinyam, Shaisa Yisrael B'chalko Shal Shem Achach Kav Shaknaini V'chlei Lachzir L'Havcha Eretz Canaan L'Eretz Yisrael Yitzrach Liat Tchilas Kivash Eretz Meshiv Agayim. However, on a physical plane, Israel was it wasn't called Israel, right?
Right.
It was called the land of Canaan.
Right.
So it belonged to Shem. Shem was Noach's son. And then afterwards, the Canaanim conquered it, and they got the land, Eretz Canaan, in the times of Abraham. And then in order to change it and return it, or bring it, sorry, not return it, but bring it from Canaan to Eretz Yisrael, there had to be the wars of the Jewish people conquering the 7 nations. So, just like you have the history of Israel, it's an interesting thing because It's an interesting thing because people say, people say, like the Jewish people, we did conquer Israel, right? We
Yeah.
did conquer Israel. And we did it was war. We conquered it with war.
Yeah.
Now, why did we do it? Because God told us to, right? Through our prophets. That's why we did it. So just like Israel had to be conquered with war, right? So the same thing, we also have this idea of conquering Israel spiritually in our service of God.
I have a
Yeah.
question. Why did God apportion such a small piece of land to Israel, as Israel? I mean, you know,
The reason also is that not only is it a small piece of land, but it's at the most vulnerable juncture
exactly.
of Asia and Europe.
Yes.
It's the crossroads. It's a valuable piece of land to all the other nations. So God wanted to be sure that the Jews would rely on God to protect them, because they're the smallest people in the smallest land.
Well, so we were promised, Abraham was promised a much larger piece of land, all the way from the sea to the Euphrates.
To the Euphrates, yeah.
There were 10 nations in the times of who conquered it, and when the Jewish people went in, God said, I only want you to conquer 7 now. And eventually you'll conquer the next 3. So we haven't conquered the next 3 yet.
Where did is that the Midrash or is that in the
It's
Torah?
in the Bible.
And
Genesis, yeah.
What areas are those three?
Those areas are going all the way to the Euphrates.
You're Iraq, right?
Iraq, Jordan, yeah.
Is Iran in there too?
I'm not sure.
That's huge.
It is a pretty big piece of land. So he did a lot of piece of land, but it has to do also with Jewish people being in exile. When we're in exile, as Ed mentioned, it's like we have to rely on God and everything like that. Like the final ultimate is when we'll have total peace and we'll have all that huge piece of land. So yeah, that is interesting that there's the land of the Keni, Knizi, Vikadmaini, which is promised. Actually, one of the things is when we conquer that land, we'll be able to add in the final cities of refuge that we mentioned,
Right.
because those are in those lands. So when eventually we get that land, we'll finally be able to do the mitzvah of putting.
What is the spiritual counterpart to the conquest?
So that's what we're going to say. So v'inyan nice v'aklos avaydekim and terms atzman shezau inyan eretz Yisrael b'ruchnis. So like when you're doing a mitzvah, you're in Israel mode. When you're doing a mitzvah, you're in Israel mode.
Okay.
Now, again, as we said before, there was a people of Israel before the land of Israel, right? Before we got there, it was called the land of Canaan. Only later on in the Torah, they become called Eretz Yisrael, right? Abraham never heard of Israel because Israel wasn't born yet, right?
Is Shem related to the word Canaan at all?
No. Canaan is another grandson.
Is there any?
Let me just get that.
Oh, all right. I didn't even know they
Canaan
were
is
there.
I got it. It's my son's right here.
They were so quiet.
Sorry, I didn't know you
Look at this.
Shem is a son of Noah. Canaan is a grandson.
And Shem was the good son, the one who covered his father.
Yes. And throughout the land of Israel was these grandsons of Canaan.
I
Bracha.
think they were descended from Ham.
Hey, Karen?
I just got up because I heard a funny noise.
That's
And
funny. He
with
was
my-
so quiet.
Yeah, with my tinnitus that I have, it's really bad. Sometimes keeps me awake at night. It's hard for me to determine directionality sometimes. So I heard the noise. I thought it was outside. I got up to go look because I'm a little nervous about today, and
Yeah, that's why I asked if you were carrying.
I didn't hear.
Are you carrying?
Yeah. Oh, every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
would you
unless
mind
I-
sitting next to me? So-
Okay, let's just.
You want me to sit
I'll feel
in
safer.
between you and the
Safe.
door? Is that what you're?
No,
Oh,
that's
so you
actually
can
a
see
better
what's
place.
coming.
Okay, so here
Well,
goes.
I want you to be able to see the door.
All right.
I'll be
So
right behind you.
okay.
Thank you so much.
So v'inyanhu nois v'aklos avaydekim and Torah mitzvahs. Besides the mitzvah of Torah and mitzvahs that we have a mitzvah of Torah mitzvahs. Nitztava kol echad v'echad kol ma'asecha yilu l'shem shemayim. There's another mitzvah in the Torah that everything you do has to be for God. So when you're eating, you have to intentionally do it for God. When you're sleeping, intentionally do it for God. Whatever you're doing, it has to be for God. Recreation.
It's a whole concept to take in.
Well, yeah, so that's in Code of Jewish law. It's like everything in your life has to be Jewish. So everything in your life, you never do things essentially for yourself. Even what you need to do for yourself, you're supposed to do for God, right? So you don't eat ideally because you need to survive. You eat because you need to serve God. That's what that you need to serve God. So, and furthermore, in Jewish law it says you should know God in everything you're doing. So not only is it that everything you do has to be a means to be for God, but in everything you do, you're supposed to be consciously doing it for God. You don't only serve God through praying and studying Torah and doing mitzvahs. Everything you do, 24 hours a day, you're supposed to be doing it for God. Now, it's a lot, but that's the basics in Jewish law. And it's a fundamental belief that everything we have is for God. Even things you need for hygiene or you need for your body, those also have to be for God. And even things that you need for physical benefit. You have to do this on a high level, that everything you have belongs and is subservient to God.
That makes it harder to eat junk food.
It does. It does. And also, it's like when you make food, you have to make a blessing.
Yeah.
If you're eating non-kosher food, how could you be eating that for God, right? How could that be for God?
Right.
Okay, so I just want to tell you, as we learned in Tanya, this is not something that you can necessarily do in one day, but this is a life's mission. This is a life's mission.
I think it's a wonderful life's mission.
Well, this is essentially
one bit at a time.
Essentially, what we're doing, we can always go deeper because we're inherently physical creatures. We're animals. It's very hard to teach this and do this, and you only do a little. Okay, so now until everything turns to holy, and you don't even care about physical matters anymore. You only care about the holiness in the physical matter. So that would be that when you go to eat, for example, you're not thinking about your hunger. You're thinking about, I'm hungry. Must be God needs me to serve him with some food. What food does he want me to eat? How does he want me to eat it? What does he want me to do with the energy from the food? These are the questions that will come to your mind. And it's not only that you should view things as they're a means to serve God, but no, they actually become holy when you do that. This theme of conquest should also be expressed not only in serving God while you're involved with materials. That's conquering. Conquering Israel is taking your physical things and showing that they're Jewish and holy. But it's not only by when you're in the midst of them, but also from time to time, you have to steal from your physical things. You have to steal from your time that you allotted to yourself and say, I'll use a little bit of this time to study Torah.
That's all the spiritual component of
Israel.
Conquest.
Yeah, conquest of Israel.
Conquest.
Yeah.
Conquering whatever
why
stands in your way.
Israel should be possessed by the Jews so that we can sanctify it.
Correct.
But it's more than that.
Well,
it's when you do something for God here, you're conquering your animal desire to eat before saying a blessing.
So essentially, what we're doing here. So essentially, what are we doing here? We're taking land, our bodies, which innately don't feel holy,
right?
And we're saying, no, they're holy. They belong to God. This belongs to God. This doesn't belong to me or doesn't belong, right? Now, if you look at it from other people in the world, they're going to say, hey, why don't you be a regular guy, right? Why don't you be a regular guy? What do you mean? You have the rights. You have rights, right? Here we're really saying we don't really have rights. Our life is to serve God. What I mean is rights is we don't have personal rights. We have whatever rights God's give us. And our God-given rights are the things that we work on.
You could say it another way. I'm sorry.
Just real quick, just to finish off the spiritual conquest of Eretz Israel, on a personal level, you're conquering the animal spirit that is trying to keep you from doing God's will.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
So now we're going to see the parallel about Israel, but what
There's
is
parallels
what is
already.
essentially the problem with Israel? The problem is the world thinks it's just a regular piece of land, right? And we stole it. We conquered it from somebody, right? It's like colonialism, right? We conquered it. It would belong to someone else. We conquered it. And people conquered it from us. It's a regular piece of land. And the same thing with our lives. The world thinks our lives belong to us. They're regular things. We're just like animals, right? And the message of Israel is no, no, no. It belongs to God. God wants us to have it. He wants us to sanctify it. He wants us to show it belongs to Him.
And that, you could say that you're really recognizing that, whether it's your body or Israel, that it's holy. And so, and to use a contemporary word, you could say you're liberating it from unholiness to holiness. One, in our own life by observing mitzvahs, because we're God's creation. So if we observe God's mitzvahs, we're recognizing that we are godly. We're created by God. And so we're liberating ourselves from mundane things, what you said, conquering the animal soul.
And the
But you could think of that as a different way of saying we're liberating our bodies and our lives from the mundane and recognizing that they are holy.
yeah.
And the same reasoning applies to the land of Israel.
Correct. So let's go through and finish this
what you're
paragraph.
saying, yeah.
Okay, this is the idea of conquering Israel, b'avodah ruchnis, and spiritual service. Kovish and yanim artzim umeis v'anagas ha'olam. You have to conquer your worldly modes of conduct from the prevailing norms of the nations of the world. Va'isa isam Eretz Yisrael, and you have to make them Israel. Gamas mitzius v'gashmish ha'olam, even the physical being of the world, she'ein ba mitzvah, hu kovish mahafech l'kedusha. Every aspect of your life has to be holy and Jewish and godly and spiritual. So,
Which is, like you said, the opposite of mundane.
so Valpiza Yom Tepisah Mavasinasin. According to this, we can tie this with the Rebbeim used to say. So famous. The Alter Rebbe was the first one of many years who sent. So I sent out a charity. Now I'm fundraising for a different charity, not because any other charities are bad, but the original charity I sent out is called Kol Chabad. It was started by the Alter Rebbe in Israel like 300 years ago. And it's still there. And it's the oldest charity in Israel, which is still active. It's a great charity.
What is it again?
Kolel Chabad. The charity I started fundraising, I emailed out yesterday, is a cousin of mine who's actually giving out stuff. So I said, hey, he said, maybe people will give more if they feel it's personal, and you know me, and I know, and so, it's good to just advocate for somewhere I can literally just send money. I know that day it's going out to different things. But the Alter Rebbe sent a lot of people to Israel. And there were certain Hasidim who were allowed to go to Israel, and certain Hasidim were not. So one time someone told the third Lubavitch Rebbe, said, I want to move to Israel. So he told him back, he said, Mach da Eretz Yisrael, which means make here Israel. Don't go to Israel, make here Israel. Also kan Israel. Sheshlem shkavanos da Israel lo rak shi yasvach in Tishvach and Ruchnias, asiyo v'kiyam ter mitzvahs, ki im gam avodah Ruchnias to kivash Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe was telling him, the Rebbeim, and the Rebbe said this many times. A lot of people said to the Rebbe, they said, I want to move to Israel. And the Rebbe said, make where you are Israel first, and then you can move. Because that's also our job. So it's not just making your place a place of Torah mitzvahs, making your home a home of Torah mitzvahs, a home of Israel. But it's also making yourself, conquering yourself, machda, conquering yourself, here you into Israel. Gam artis shaloi shal chutz la'aretz kufa. Not only are you bringing spirituality to the world, but you're making the mundane in the world spiritual. So in other words, you're not only doing a mitzvah and being a light unto the nations, let's say, but actually your physical life is becoming holy, is becoming Israelness. Gam artis shal chutz la'aretz kufa. They say merish gam saskus ben yerushus strach v'gashmin ti ba'efin l'lasis v'tzein shal makim. Which means even the mundane parts of your life and mundane times in your life, whatever you're doing, it has to be done for God. You're fulfilling God's will. So that is what we're saying, is the idea of conquering. In the next paragraphs, we already mentioned, it's a long sikha, but we'll go through it. we already mentioned, we kind of alluded, we said there's the idea of stealing, right? So, really, Jews tell this to Jews all the time. They say, or we tell it to ourselves. We say, that's not me. This mitzvah's not me. Or people say, like, you don't do that. You don't keep kosher. You don't this, you don't that. And it's true. I never did it before, right? Essentially, what they're saying is they say you're stealing from being regular. You're stealing yourself from being a regular American or a regular human being. That's essentially what they're saying, right? Now, the Rebbe,
By observing the mitzvot?
by transforming our lives to be totally Jewish. People
Okay,
will say,
okay.
and we'll say to ourselves, a lot of times, everyone says it to themselves, they say, it's not for me. It's beyond me. It's like, nah, I'm good with what I do.
Right,
And here, what we're essentially saying is, no. The reality is that you have to conquer. This is your land. This is your land. It has to be conquered for God. It has to become Israel. And people will say that you're stealing, right? You're doing, maybe there's something that you used to do that you're not doing anymore, or something that you didn't do and you're starting to do, and you're stealing from your time, space, expenses, whatever it is. But that is actually what we're saying in Making Israel. This is
Right.
what we're going to say is Rashi is saying in the beginning of the Torah. So, it's interesting because the Rebbe has a very all-encompassing spiritual, physical plan, political plan for security. And it all aligns spiritually, physically, politically. It all aligns for Israel. When the Rebbe spoke about not giving away Israel, the Rebbe never said, the land of Israel, the Rebbe wouldn't say, it's our land. The Rebbe would say, Jewish law requires that we do the most secure thing for Israel. And the land of Israel has to follow Jewish law, right? That's the only thing. And if they don't follow Jewish law, eventually they'll have to follow Jewish law, because Israel is inherently connected with the Torah. On another note, someone once wrote an article against Orthodox Jews. So the Rebbe wrote a letter to him, and he said, I'm so glad you're involving yourself with Orthodox Jews. He said, but you write in your letter that you don't believe in the Torah, but you believe in Israel. And he said, I don't understand. Israel is from the Torah. That's where the origin of Israel comes from. He said, if you believe the Torah is true, and it's divine, then obviously all the ideas in the Torah will never change, because it's divine. However, if you believe the Torah is not divine and it's made by humans, then I would hope we would move on from all the ideas. After 4,000 years, 3,000 years, we should move on and we should advance in human intellect from the Torah, right? And indeed, if Torah promises Israel and it's made by humans, I would hope we'd move on and move wherever we need to move. It's just not, it doesn't matter anymore. So you can see that was the Rebbe's. The Rebbe always said that there has to be Shleimus HaTorah. The Torah has to be complete in Israel. Shleimus HaAm, the Jewish people have to be complete, and that was mainly in regard to them, Israel making citizens and defining them Jewish, even if they weren't halachically Jewish. And the Rebbe said there has to be Shleimus HaAretz. The land of Israel has to be complete and has to be a proper. It's a mitzvah to make Israel a proper defensive hold. A proper security for the Jewish people is one of the greatest mitzvahs. So
And
hopefully they'll do that.
so we should defend Israel by saying we're liberating it for God.
Well,